Ṣẹ̀kẹ̀rẹ̀ lọ bá jó, ṣẹ̀kẹ̀rẹ̀ lọ bá jó, olúwa mi ò dìde ojó ṣẹ̀kẹ̀rẹ̀.
Hello and welcome to the Ashen Forge. I am Phantom X, joined as always by Diggs and the legendary Neurotoxin. It has been a very, very long time. Thank you all for joining us. Actually, I'm very happy to see everyone that is in chat that has been with us for the last many years who I'm super excited to just see y'all showing up after, 2 months that we've been I think it's about 2 months, right? Somewhere in there.
Yeah, it's our usual like November through like late January sort of hiatus when things just get way too crazy, like on your end, and then we also get busy, and it's like, well, let's just kind of chill for a little bit on this.
Yeah, so
and it happens. It's cool.
Mainly my fault. I'll be just honest about that. Work has been absolutely crazy for me. I worked 27 out of 31 days in Christmas or December, including Christmas. So anyways, enough about me.
Well, but let's wait. Let's add in there that COVID is playing some part in that.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of people know what I do, and I don't need to go down that rabbit hole. But
we should throw that little bit in there.
Anyways, we can.
It is a COVID year.
So with that, I'm going to entirely hand this off to you two because I have honestly also not been able to pay nearly as much time as I should have to Ashes of Creation or really any game. So you all start off. I know we just had a stream, which I, again, have not been able to watch. So for you two, I was reading a comment. It's been a while since I checked anything, and I was on YouTube looking at some of our stuff, and somebody said I say way too much, and now I'm very self-conscious of the fact that I keep saying So I'm going to shut up for now and let you both sort of start off with wherever you want to take this for 2 months now. I guess we can first start off. I talk and talk. A big part of what I've been doing is interviewing people for hours upon hours for the last literally 2 months. So I've gotten in a habit of just talking and talking and talking. So when I say I shut up, I didn't. I do think we should start with the upcoming dates just before we dip into things. So the alpha, pre-alpha, what are they calling it?
Alpha 1 preview.
Okay, and that is coming up in what, 3 weeks, 2 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks?
I think it's
February 19th to 22nd. Yep.
So a little under 3 weeks. So that's just something for folks who I'm sure everyone's been following but me. But if you're not aware, that is actually coming up. And they're going to stream some of that too, which I think we'll talk about when you kind of go over the latest dev stream. So I'm going to mute myself.
So that's one of the nice things is they talked about that they've been doing a lot of the planning in the back end and stuff, and now they're pretty much ready to, I think you said, bash it through the pipeline. So there's a lot of work that Jeff was saying is in a good state. It's in good shape, and they're ready to start really putting all this stuff in. One of the things that was brought up was that they don't really start populating a zone until it's about 95% complete, just because they don't want to have to keep repopulating and redoing things every time there's an adjustment. And while I'm not sure if the water, if the oceany sort of area is actually going to be populated in this version or not, or if it's just swim in water at this point, swimming and drowning water. And falling in, there's falling damage for water. Everything's a belly flop. I don't know what extent they're going to have things in the water, but I believe on the surface it sounds like they're going to want to have things again around 95% complete before they move forward with populating it. So all they have is stand-ins right now. If you watch the video, you see some fiery coconut crabs kind of pop in and act menacing. You see some dinosaur-looking lizards just kind of chilling on the beach, doing their dinosaur-looking lizard business. But by and large, the interactions and encounters with creatures and populating and drawing in at a reasonable distance, it looks like all of that stuff's still kind of in the works right now. So, it does not feel populated whatsoever. And then they said, especially the points of interest, those are specially populated because they're going to have their own decals and props and a little story to it, so it might have certain specific creatures and stuff too, special triggers that occur, etc. So there's a lot that goes into making all the different aspects of the zones here.
Well, Phantom says that he doesn't talk enough, or maybe he talks too much. I think he doesn't talk enough, and it's usually because I interrupt him. But you had a question that we talked about a little bit before we came online. Which was a good question.
What, with regards to the website?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think that's something else they've been working on. Correct? They're actually paired up with a third party. There's another company, right, that's helping them with some of it.
Valor Software is the name of the company. In fact, in our Discord chat, I think Dow went on and did a little bit of research and said they're an Angular JS shop. So I don't know exactly what that means for the current backend they have, if they're transitioning, if that's what they're already using, if there's something that kind of plugs in with what they already have. Backend is not my expertise. Valor Software was the name.
The reason I ask is because I think this is their third website. I know because they've done the website, they've done the forums. This will be the third forums, correct?
Once they get around to forums, they're focusing on the website.
But it will be I know for sure that's because they had such a
it sounds
hard
like
time
it's
with
going to
first
be
second.
Yeah, third forums, and we were kind of talking. I'm wondering if this is perhaps even the fourth version of the website they're going to be releasing here, because I feel like they had the initial website like around the initial release of the game and stuff, and then when it came to Apocalypse, that was kind of like a second version. And I feel like the website has changed at least once since Apocalypse, or has been kind of transitioning. But now with this, this fourth one here going on, this is like really going to be the version. Maggie was saying during the stream that she has very deliberately been directing this one. The Valor Software is helping with the back end, which I'm expecting is something to alleviate back end issues and stuff with the team itself, so they can focus more on making a nice clean presentation of the website. And knowing that, what is capable, what isn't capable, how long it's going to take for all the stuff to get taken care of, having a third party helping them out with that sort of thing. So I would imagine they kind of came into it with here's exactly how we want the website to be going forward. And then, finding someone they can work with that's going to take the existing back end and work with what they're planning to do to make it all happen and, ease the transition of the process. So I'm excited for this because this sounds like this is going to be the final website. All of the features that they're going to need for release are probably going to be built into this. And while they might not all be released initially with this, they said there are going to be some update to it over time, even before the forums is taken care of one last time. But I'm really excited to see this now because this is going to give us a good idea of what people are going to see is the front end when they first look up the game and they're first trying to get details about it. And, once again, it's going to be something they're working on. So if we give them feedback on something that's going to help it be even better or something that's just a little awkward to all of us, this will still give them the opportunity to kind of work on it while while things still haven't fully cooled yet.
The reason I asked, there I go with the again. Damn it. The reason I look for patterns and behaviors a lot just in what I do. And so when I see, and at the end of the last, 2 months ago or whenever it was we last did our show, I really started getting kind of pessimistic about everything. I think that was my general mood or outlook. So when I see, we're going through a third iteration, I start to, hopefully that's what you just said, Neuro, that this is the final choice. This is hey, we've got a lot of people looking at us. Let's do something now that's going to be permanent. The pessimistic side of me says, this is your third time doing this. Can you just not get it right the first time? Can you not make up your mind how you want it to be? And what does that say to this absolutely massive game that you're also creating?
Yeah. But the first couple of times were just kind of
Yeah.
Steven's vision. Let's get something, and I'm not too worried about it because we aren't doing a lot of marketing. But this is the first time we're getting Margaret, who is the brand person, and we're using Margaret's expertise for working through the design. So
And
that's why.
there's something that we were kind of talking about this a little bit before the show, and the other sort of thing that I want to say is you look at something like World of Warcraft, or you think of like a big name game, that they don't have to show anything about it until it's very much ready to release and they're ready to pull the trigger on it. I think of even how far they got with the game that Overwatch was going to be until they decided to just scrap it and make Overwatch instead. We didn't see any of that. We didn't see a single iteration of that for the most part that I'm aware of. So, if you're a well-resourced company, you don't have to reveal your hand early. You don't have to have an intake website right off the bat. For something that's doing the early access and is doing a lot of the community-funded development as part of the engagement, you have to have a website early, which means it's probably not going to have all of the features that you need initially. So it does make sense that they've had to evolve the website with the things that they're doing, and only evolve the website up to the point where they've needed it to, get past the next milestone. But now that they're looking more towards the road to release, it does make sense now to finally have this is our website going forward and know exactly what it's going to be. They've had enough time to see what's missing, what's wonky, what they're going to need to have to make sure it can handle the load of all of the users going forward. So I'm sure there's been a lot of technical stuff too that's been going on that's helped them kind of shape exactly what the constraints are going to be with the new website going forward. And yeah.
For sure. Or 3.
The things that make you money.
Sorry, I was muted. I just made a comment that they at least have cosmetics down as far as the web store and everything else. So that has been worked on just fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, and one of the things with that's a piece of the website in some ways is, I was going to say that the iterations should be okay because part of the philosophy is that they wanted us to be in early development. So we should be watching them start kind of crappy and build up. And in that sense, I think it's okay for them to be on our third one because that just lets us know how early on we were let in to experience the development with them. But that being said, I wish that one of the things that was happening on the website is more articles, which is what we were kind of promised, which is what was said was going to happen when Margaret first came on back in 2018. Is it 2018 when she started? Right? Beginning of 2018?
That
so.
sounds
Yeah,
about
it's been a
right.
while.
I'm trying to remember when she left the previous company.
Was it 2019 or 2018? I think it was 2018. Just been
No, I think you're right. It's
almost
2018. Yeah, it's been a while.
3 years. The game was supposed to only take 2 years to come out. But one of the things that was supposed to happen is these articles coming out fairly regularly, and that did so for about 6 months or 7 months and then stopped. And it seems to me that it should be okay.
January 2019. I just checked on LinkedIn.
Great. 2 years. Okay. 2 years.
Just look it up.
Okay. So if you even put out articles, because I think they stopped in the middle of the nodes articles again, we got 2, and I think we're waiting for 2 more.
There's that, and then the So Long Sanctus has also kind of been on hold. But I feel like this is again just like some December and January, like people taking breaks and vacation sort of hiatus. A little pause in the action.
Well, but the Node articles came out in 2019, so
That's
we
true.
should have had more in 2020. And the reason for not having them is that they're going through some changes and thought about how they want things to work. But that should be fine. You can update the articles. I think that's part of being in on early development, saying this is what we were thinking now, and hey, guess what, guys? We changed, and this is how it's changing.
I
That should be an
100%
okay
agree.
part of the process.
I not only agree that making a statement and then changing it and having it as part of like a rolling wiki or a rolling like here's the latest information sort of document definitely makes sense because there have been a lot of changes. And then the other thing to your statement there, I completely agree that they probably pulled back on the notes stuff because even late last year in the streams, I still got a feeling that they still weren't completely set on what nodes were going to be, how they were going to work, and all of the functionality. They've got a lot of the ideas. I feel like now they've maybe got too many ideas, and they're trying to figure out piece together exactly what the right combination is to make it all work properly. And it's a tough target to hit because there's so many factors to this game. And
especially when I think you mentioned what they're going to have underwater. And one of the things that we saw in this week's live stream was that what appears underwater will be affected by the nodes in that area. And that seems like another layer of complexity to add on. I mean, okay, but at some point the game is going to have to release, I think.
Like, oh yeah, we've got our own resident Kraken off the coast ever since we made this place a metropolis. I mean, I don't know if it's going to be to that extent, but it'll definitely be interesting to see. I would imagine it's difficulty of creatures and richness of resources available, as well as the depth and difficulty of available events and content that will kind of scale with the area.
I mean, that would be a great question to ask Stephen or someone who's on, is just what amount of extra work really goes into that. Obviously they'll have to figure out underwater movement, but that's something that I think could be fairly easily done, and distinguishing when you're in water, when you're not. So I would assume a lot of it is more sort of the stylistic, adding on all of that extra artwork and all of the other, that pipeline that's going to have to go through for the underwater side.
Yes. So what we've seen so far, we've seen characters on mounts. So we've seen characters swimming underwater. We've seen mounts moving and swimming underwater, and it looks pretty good. One of the things, again, talked about in this week's live stream was the road system and how capillaries of road systems will appear depending on how the node progresses. They said it would be too difficult to make roads appear based on how characters are walking across them. But the setup of the minor roads will depend on exactly how the node progresses. And I'm guessing that will extend somehow to underwater to maybe where roads access tributary or major dock or whatever will change depending on how a node develops. And that would be interesting if it changes each time you destroy and rebuild, if it's a little bit different because the node's going to be a little bit different. I would expect that to be the case. And it seems like that might affect underwater, what we see underwater as well.
Yeah,
Likely so.
I'm not real excited about underwater. Just never have been
I know,
my
because you're
thing.
going to be
And we've
farming.
talked about it before. No, I've just never. I cannot think of one MMO, really, or any RPG that I have had any good experience with underwater combat, exploration. That sort of. There's absolutely nothing that comes to mind.
Don't remember where, but I feel like I've seen some game or some story otherwise. Maybe it was something a friend did in a D&D session or something. Basically conjured a massive air bubble so they could basically just walk around underwater and do what they needed to do. And if some underwater creature wanted to tangle with them, guess what? It has to go in the dry zone where it's at a disadvantage. So I could see things like that, for example, to accommodate a player like you who probably doesn't want to swim, but if you took the swimming out and you were a surface fighter underwater in your own, like, giant air bubble, does that seem a little bit more appealing? You can use light sources, you can, access the loot and stuff and jump around on things. Um, you know, I think removing the neutral buoyancy because you again got an air bubble down there is pretty neat. Takes away a lot of the what makes underwater from a physics perspective. I don't know if that's something that's easy for them to do or not. I would hope so.
Vostir also in WoW also did have the ability to go down and grab air bubbles so that you didn't drown. I felt Vostir was entertaining for a few weeks. I don't think I would want to go back. And I'm glad that as I'm playing World of Warcraft the last few months, I don't spend too much time underwater. And I think I did an underwater quest maybe in early last year, maybe in early, maybe almost a year ago, February, March, around Zandalar. That was kind of okay. But I think the big thing that Steven's really interested in is more the naval stuff, boats and ships on top of the water and the combat there more so than the underwater stuff. That seems to be what he's really hyped about.
He's very much a fan of pirating.
So what do you guys think? I just wonder this idea to put everything out all at once. Like, how would you feel if they came and said, well, this is a lot of work. We want to get something out there. We're going to, for now, step back things. So say underwater, we're going to, you'll have naval combat, but we're going to hold off maybe for an expansion or something else later on so that we can be a little bit more perfect with the water portion. How would you feel about that sort of approach, or that approach in general, to being applied more to games nowadays than you see? Because I feel like a lot of things, Star Citizen, you just sort of get in this perpetual alpha state of trying to get everything on at the same time when you could be kind of rocking and rolling with one thing and then adding more on later.
Go ahead.
For something that is originally a launch feature that is then going to be made a post-launch feature, it is, no matter how well they do it, always going to feel tacked on rather than part of the original vision. Maybe if somebody comes and plays like a legacy server later where it's got all of the stuff that eventually went in but starts on like a world on day one, maybe they wouldn't have that same feeling about it. But I feel like if underwater and underwater business isn't an integral part of gameplay and how you do things and resources and the whole of the gameplay economy and the world economy, then trying to make it a part of that after the game's been released and supposedly should have a full functioning economy and flow of resources, then means what you're doing is you're just adding an additional ecosystem you can optionally engage in, but it isn't, truly important. It isn't, a critical sort of thing. I also say that what it's going to do is create an unrealistic expectation for what late gameplay is going to be like when people come in early and it's like, oh, there's nothing out in the ocean, other than other players. The only thing you have to worry about is drowning. It's like, oh, cool. And then when creatures come in, you're going to have all the people complaining, oh, I want my oceans back. I can't go swimming freely anymore. I get eaten by the eel. And then there's going to be the cry fest about that instead of it being something that's there from the beginning.
Well, naval and I think by extension underwater were stretch goals in the Kickstarter. So in that sense, if we're talking about timing and when things get released, I guess it's no longer a stretch goal. I guess it's a goal. But I agree. A lot of times, that in previous years, that's been one of the major complaints about PvP is that PvP always feels like it's tacked on because they focus on the PvE stuff to begin with, and then have added the PvP in later, and it never quite matches up. So at this point, they're so far along that they've got to go there. Now, one of the places that's kind of problematic for me is that they've spent a lot more time trying to make the environment look more realistic, and they're spending so much time, it seems to me, trying to make the water more realistic. Like, I don't know what the end goal or what's the end restriction on when they're going to stop trying to make the water look realistic.
Visibility. I believe
realistic to me.
I believe the biggest goal is that they want something that's tuned in such a way that it looks realistic, both close and in the distance, but that it's also clear enough that based on the lighting and then based on where you're at relative to the surface, if you're above it or kind of from the side, you're able to get different glimpses of what's underneath there. It may very well be part of the process of, being able to con creatures underwater, knowing whether you should dive down there and, get that loot or not, is whether the water's clear enough that you can see, oh, there's some, nasty critters that's down there waiting for me. And sure, that's a cool treasure, but it's, above my pay grade in terms of being able to get it.
My point is that World of Warcraft, it's clear underwater. I can do that underwater.
No, I don't mean underwater. I mean from the surface to look
down. I mentioned underwater just because that was easy to pick, as an example.
I know. I'm bringing it up because that's one of my pet peeves that I have right now, is that when I look at what they showed in the video, they're talking about making the water even more realistic than it already is. And even the environment itself, at this point, it's so realistic. There's a little bit of an uncanny valley to me, it seems like, when I see the characters that they have next to the environment, because the characters aren't as realistic as the environment is. And so I'm segueing into that as a point. There comes a point where, unless the characters are also going to be very realistic, I think you don't necessarily have to go quite as realistic with the environments. And I think for me, they've gone a little too realistic with the environments in comparison to the characters. But they love the fact that it's super realistic.
But I kind of picked water and just as an easy target as an example, and I think it was Theodore had mentioned they really should have underwater sorted out at the same time they do naval combat. I totally agree. So if you can't have one without the other, that's something. I would be much more in favor of the idea of stepping back and really getting the nuts and bolts set before doing all of these extraneous things. I would even apply that to things to other biomes and other things that are just going to take a lot of time and art and all this to get put together. I singled out underwater just because that's easy to single out. But I would kind of take the approach for everywhere. Is it 18 to 20 biomes? Is that what you? I think that's
Yeah, they said 18 to 20 biomes is the current target, and in the alpha test that's coming up, it's going to be. I've got them listed. It's all going to have tropics, but the mainland area is also going to have jungle, Sahara, floodplain, and snow up in the mountains. So that's going to be quite a lot of the game to be able to see, and which means they've got a lot of work cut out for them to be able to get that in here in 3 weeks.
Well, there's also magical biomes. I don't know that, but that's not going to necessarily be in the alpha one. I think, and my concern is not so much with overworld biomes because, Daybreak devs and artists working on other games should have a lot of experience doing overworld biomes. The two that are really difficult to pull off, I think, are underwater and underground. So those are the ones I'd be really concerned about, and the other ones I wouldn't be too concerned about because they probably have ample experience with those.
I just I don't know. I would like the idea of expansions, adding on new environments appeals to me. So, I would like to see personally that all of this time, energy, and money gets spent more into the backbone of what makes Ashes unique, which, as I've always said to me anyways, is the node system, which I know they talk a lot that we still really have not seen a lot of what they've said. But that and PvP, I guess, would be the other aspect that sets Ashes apart from a lot of other MMORPGs. So I would prefer to see those two things really fleshed out. And they've been doing a great job with PvP. I mean, we've been a part of that with APOC and everything else. So, we know that's coming along. We really haven't seen a lot of nodes.
But the big part of PvP that we still need to see. So when you say PvP, I'm thinking the PvP as it's connected to nodes, and we haven't seen enough of that.
That's true. Because I agree that I'm also thinking of the node sieges, the caravans, the guild wars, all of those sorts of things. So I don't know. I just these are things that in my mind would fit wonderfully. There's a lot of this that would fit wonderfully as future expansions or something to that degree. Now the question, I guess, that then it gets extended in my mind is Ashes really even set up to be a game that will have expansions, right? Like, how will those fit in the traditional sense? Since all of this is player driven, we're driving the economy, we're changing the world ourselves. So where does expansions even fit in here in the traditional sense? I guess I've never really thought of that. We need a game before we have an expansion, but
I'm hoping we don't have expansions in the traditional sense.
Well, here's the question. Is the entire world, like circumnavigating the entire world, north to south, east to west, latitude, longitude, is that going to be a possibility on day one? Or are we only getting a small portion of the world and there's a lot more out there that we haven't seen that's not part of the main area that we get to see here? Because if the question is yes, or if the answer is yes, that it is a globe and we're on it and this is it, then I don't know what expanding the content is going to look like. But I think about what other games like. That was one of the things for the inklings we were getting from Chronicles of Illyria, for example, that this was just a small part of a much, much larger world. And it's not necessarily an expansion like, give us money and then you get a special boat that goes to further distances, so much as we've now opened up regions that you're able to discover more readily as the technology is kind of opened up to allow you to. But that game also had a 10-year lifespan. At the 10-year mark, the server ends in some cataclysmic event, and that's it. It's just game over. So I don't know exactly how far you were supposed to get in that.
How do you even implement it, right? So one of the things that drives me that Stephen had mentioned early on, being a very early backer, is just nodes. And the idea that each server can have its own unique history, identity, a year after release, where I started is not going to be the same as where someone else started, in a different server. So then how do you even come and implement expansions in that setting where you have very different worlds? I guess that's why I start thinking expansion just isn't the right term. I guess maybe just more content release, like extra planets, like was mentioned in chat, or my question is sort of how hard, how firm are they on the total number of top level nodes as well, metropolises? Because if you expand the world, you would have to add to that, right? You would have to add more regions that could be conquered. Everyone's typing, so there must have been a really good question. Anyways, in chat. So, but
yeah. So I'm thinking that I envision it as being more DLCs that are added. So we'll get more content. We won't necessarily get more land like WoW tends to do. And if they wanted to go that route, I would expect them to take us to different worlds through portals, rather than expand land on Vera.
Gotcha. And I think one of the other things is because the world uses dynamic systems. I'm going to use something similar to an example from a different game. So we're thinking everything's all on fine and good up to this point, and then oh no, this raging pandemic occurs that's totally not COVID related, and this event was designed before the current pandemic existed, so it's totally not some weird contrived thing. But that kind of comes through, and it just changes the way everybody has to work and operate for a moment, while the entire game world tries to find a way to mitigate this terrible plague or curse or calamity that affects everybody and needs everybody's help to resolve it, or to try to tough it out and just remain in it, and it's not going to go very well.
Hell, I'd just let it run loose.
So
that would be that'd be a very fun experience.
So I mean, that's kind of
my immediate question is, can I stop you from stopping the plague?
Maybe. I mean, for everyone I cure, you go and sneeze on 10 more. It definitely seems like there's ways that you can take the existing game content and just completely twist it on its head and do something different. Some sort of cataclysmic change, some emergence of some new technology, some emergence of some ancient threat, something from somewhere up and down the energy stream of the gods or whatever, for which the characters are the vessels and the conduits, comes into the world, and it's like, hey, so now things are completely different. Now the existing prevailing bad guys has a rival from somewhere in some other part of the energy flow universes, and now the game world's changed because of it. So there's definitely things like that they can do, where adding new layers and adding more things, and at the same time making it something that will eventually either change the entire world or change large regions in a meaningful way. And this can even be part of the node system. As a node gets knocked up or down, it could have changes that reflect what's going on in this new thing going in the world, and it could even be so subtle that we don't realize it until 6 months later, and it's like, holy crap, what's this thing that's been growing in all of the cities that have been sieged in the past 6 months? So that's the sort of thing I'm definitely thinking about that they could do as a way to do their expansions, do their content. I even kind of expected a little bit if they're going to do any real world seasonal content. I don't remember exactly what their stance was on that, but developers even say they're not going to do a holiday thing, and then they just can't resist the temptation when it comes around. So, whatever their stance is with it, I would imagine there's going to be some sort of like real world correlative holiday events in the game that will have like a temporary change. And so what an expansion would be is not dissimilar from that. It's just a permanent consequence, not a temporary one.
Yeah, my concept of what I've heard in the past is that they've kind of talked more about DLCs, of having new content and possibly changing environments and things like that over time, as months progress, rather than working to drop a big expansion once every 2 or 3 years. So new storylines would be great, and then new content coming in along with those storylines would also be really great.
The storyline part would make sense. I think that would make sense a lot with. Of course, the volume of storylines, I guess, would be my curiosity, is how you turn that into the node structure. Just how. That's always been another question of mine, is just how much content are they writing right now that's never going to get seen based off player choices. Or maybe they're not writing that much, but I think that would make more sense here, is more of a storyline change than a world change. The way, especially the way they're trying to put everything out all at once. So.
Yeah, and I'm not exactly sure how quests and tasks end up changing based on different node growths or node directions, because that is right. A lot of those quests and storylines might be missing if the node never ends up populating in that manner. But I don't know how all that part works. I mean, in terms of designing the quests, it seems very complicated.
Yeah, I really actually wish I could get a glimpse into what their quest making process kind of looks like, because I would imagine they have to be rather dynamic and have to be responsive in a lot of different ways to a lot of different things. That it isn't still like you've gone to a level 5 node, you go to the town board looking for some work. You get a post to go to a residence. You go to the residence. They say, "I've got a rat problem. Come kill 10 rats in my basement, please." It's like, what the hell is even going on here? And so I have to imagine they aren't just going to do something like that where it's going to be, anywhere in the world you can see the same, 12 quest archetypes that you see in every other game, just with a slightly different flavor. I would hope that there's going to be a lot more to it, that like characters matter and outcomes matter, and potentially even doing like I want to say Arcade does, where you can have like 9 of 10 bear butts and come back and it's like, "Look, kid, I knew you could only get 9. Here, I'll give you most of the reward. Now, move along." Or give you extra if you bring extra. I would like to see that sort of flexibility where it's like, I need at least 10, do what you can. If you can bring back 20, great. Instead of it just being ding 10, walk back. It's like, well, it's up to you. You can hang around, you can get a little bit more. Maybe somebody else needs bear butts. So after you've completed this, you can walk around town looking for people who need bear butts, put it on the marketplace. Oh, I forgot. What about if NPCs actually need your resources off the marketplace? Things that players don't need, but NPC like quest items. But I don't know. I think NPCs meddling with the market would be a problem.
But my hope would be that because nodes should be different based on the racial makeup. So, that even that same node, when it pops the next time, the same people should not necessarily be as concerned with rats as a different race. Maybe a different race has a different connection or feeling about rats. And then, maybe what happens, what people different races want to do with different types of animals. Maybe some are threats to a certain race, and others are allies to a race. And so, what we end up doing for them and with them, and why we're ending up, right now, World of Warcraft has a quest in Ardenweald where you grab these sprites, I think they are, and you stuff them in a bag, and you don't kill them technically. I mean, you still combat them, but you end up stuffing them in a bag and then taking them somewhere else. So, and as a pacifist, I might want that to be the ending. That okay, I have to fight them, but I don't have to kill them. Somebody's kid is escaping. Um, um, but, yeah. Um, yeah. So I'm hoping that the different races will have an effect on some of those quests, at least, so that they aren't exactly the same everywhere. But again, how you write that stuff is interesting.
I'm forgetting the game that you love that I played. The name of it.
Kingdoms of Amalur.
Yes, yes. And when we talk about quests, we have to talk about their quest system, right? At least one component that absolutely blew my mind away, that I would love to see implemented everywhere else, was just that even on the turn-in, as you go to complete the quest, you have a variety of choices on how you go about doing that. So it's not just here, I don't remember the specifics because it's been a while, but say, can you go get my ring? These bandits stole my ring. They went somewhere, go find it for me. And, in the normal process, World of Warcraft, whatever, you go get the ring, go back to the NPC, turn it in, you move on to the next node, you go do this. And in that game, you have the option of, she says, oh, I would love to have my ring back. And I'll kill you. I kill you and take it for myself. Yep. Like I could turn it back to her, or I could steal it, or I could kill her and take it for myself.
Yeah.
That sort of decision is something, that process that I wish would be in every single MMORPG there is. I think that would add so much more from it. Just interesting outcomes and everything else. It would just be it's a really neat experience. Anyone that's not played that game, it's probably, at this point, there's a remastered version. It's probably super cheap now. If you want to just play it for that experience, because it's a really unique experience in being able to do that.
And that's why I call it my favorite single player MMORPG. And the only thing I hate about it is that it's single player and I can't play it with other people because it's a lot of fun. And just talking about a real role-playing experience is that gives you the option of not interacting with the quest the exact same way. The three of us could get the same quest and we could choose 3 different ways of completing the quest. That would be great. And
that would influence the node in 3 different ways.
Yeah. And I think and I'm hoping those type of things that's an example of how we can foster more communication and actually talking to each other in games when we aren't experiencing the exact same thing. We all go on the exact same quests. You don't have to talk about them. You know what the quest is. You've done it before.
I mean, from a global perspective, that's what Ashes is doing, right? Everybody's story, in a very broad sense, is going to be different.
Right.
I hope. I doubt it will, but I would love to see that, though, on the very micro level as well, as you're processing through different quests at each node.
Yeah.
The one thing that your description of kind of the quest turn and what you can do with the NPC afterward reminds me of kind of the funniest thing. I did it in Morrowind. I think you can do it in other Elder Scrolls games, where if there's someone you want to get items from legally, what you do is you sit there and you click taunt and you maybe put it on a macro, and eventually the 1,000th time or 1 in 1,000 times, instead of saying, oh, you're a fly, you're not worth my time, they say, all right, doggone it, them's fighting words. And then now that you are under attack and legally defending yourself, you may kill them and loot them, which was how you could get some of the most powerful items off the head of the Wizards Guild. You kill him. You taunt him till he strikes, and then you kill him. You drink just a whole bunch of booze that makes you super beefy, and you just one punch man him. And that's it. Now you've got super magic equipment for the rest of the game. It's a funny sort of thing, and I worry. I think about that and the level of exploitability for, if you can actually interact with an NPC on that level. And then I also think about the level of like, how much should any one player be able to affect the everyday lives of the NPCs in the game world to that extent? You can recover their ring. You can find the ring, dangle it in front of them, tell them you're going to keep it, and then they call the guards, and then it's like, oh, I don't know what they're talking about.
There's no reason for them to call the guards, right? It's just you didn't give them their ring, and then your reputation with them goes down, right? They might refuse to sell you.
If what you've done is actually commit a crime, I could see them actually trying to use the law enforcement on you, though.
I don't think that's a crime to say, "Hey, go."
I've got your property that you found that you asked me to find, and instead of returning your property to you, I'm keeping it.
Yeah, because I risked my life to do it.
It depends on the laws of the node, I suppose. With the property laws, I think that, like Tellison, for example, property laws in different places, they would, swing different ways, for sure. Especially how much influence you have in the area.
You were reward anyway.
Yeah. I mean, if you never told them that you've got it, you can just keep it. There's that.
Yeah.
And that's another thing. Actually having it be a real usable item instead of, it's an item called Joe's ring. You can't do anything with it. You can't sell it. You can't equip it. You can't, throw it in your mouth and chew on it. It's just an item called Joe's ring. And then if you go to Joe, you can give Joe's ring back and get a reward. I agree that it's better than having that you actually have the option to use the item. Maybe you do use it for a bit. Maybe when you finally outgrown it, you come back to that town and say, hey, Joe, by the way, I forgot to tell you, I found your ring. Here you go.
Mm-hmm. Now that's a fun idea.
Mm-hmm.
Sort of saving a quest for later.
Mm-hmm. Then if you get jacked from that item from, getting beat up in gameplay too many times, well, now you've got a new problem. Mm-hmm. Or I guess it's Joe's new problem. Mm-hmm. Maybe they'll recognize that it's Joe's ring and they'll turn it in. It's like, oh, but I sent so-and-so. It's like, yeah, well, so-and-so's a deadbeat. I found them trying to sell it to a vendor on the street or something. I don't know. I made it up. Here, now give me the reward.
Yeah.
Well, we are starting to get close to the end of our time. So was there more?
There were two other things that I wanted to get to real quick. One, they did talk about the dev discussion, and I like that it went on for a while. I like the community conversation about dev stuff, and they do consolidate the notes. Toast does that and passes it to the dev team so they can design it and design around it and process it. It sounds like Steven still does want to do something not a daily login reward because he recognizes for some people that's kind of punishment. I go either way with it. I kind of liked it with Warframe, for example, getting my login rewards. But it's not something like if I miss a day, I don't feel like, oh no, it's the end of the world. But I think he's looking at another way. And one of the ways that I had proposed in the discussion was like you get up to 6 tokens per week and you get them from 15 minutes of active gameplay. So you play 2.5 hours in one, sitting, you're good for the week. I feel like something like that's going to be a little bit better than log in every day just for the sake of logging in every day and resenting the subscription you're paying for a game that you just log into and then go back to doing other things.
Or do a combination.
They could do a combination.
Make the login just a bite of the apple, and then actually playing for 20 minutes, you get the rest of the apple.
Could be.
The way it works in No Man's Sky is each day you get like a kind of quest, so it's kind of like a daily quest type thing. And at the end of the quest, you get a coin, and when you get a certain number of coins, you can spend that in the cosmetic shop. And the nice thing about it is what's in the cosmetic shop is always in the cosmetic shop. So
The
whenever,
opposite
however many
here, yeah.
times per week you do that, if you end up with 30 coins and there's an object that costs 30 coins, you get to spend that. But it's not something like, oh, this is going to disappear at the end of the month. So get your 30 coins right now, because next month it's going to be a completely different cosmetic. And oops, if you didn't have 30, you miss out.
Mhm.
And that was great because it you go in, and I don't even know if it takes 15 minutes to finish whatever that quest is, but you would go in and quickly do the quest, and it was something fairly easy to do. And then you hop out, and you know, when you do hop in, it's about 10 minutes, but you don't actually have to do it every single day, and that felt good.
I think the one thing that makes it punishing is that Steven is adamant on using rotating rewards to enforce FOMO. And so if you've
What
missed
is
it, you've missed
FOMO?
fear of missing out. So
Right. Yeah,
he's
that's a
very
problem.
much a fan of if you missed it, you missed it. Screw you. You had to be there. It's your fault. Like
Yeah.
that's very much like the feeling that I get every time he talks about the subject. So
Yeah.
all of the context of all of this is based around him wanting to enforce FOMO and force people to keep playing. And I feel like that is the most punitive part of it. If you don't want it to be a punishment, just keep the aesthetics around or have them come back seasonally. Don't have them disappear forever.
Well, and that's what people that's what people hate about these daily quests.
Well, and
and
here's
daily
the
log.
interesting discussion that's happening in chat is that in a lot of these games they implement that because they can only do so much content churn in a period of time, so they have to keep people interested in coming back, and having a carrot on a stick is a way to do that. Hey, if you just log in, you don't even have to play, just log in, and then hopefully that leads to playing. That is part of these sort of daily systems, is to keep you coming back when there's really honestly not much of a reason to come back. Now the thing with Ashes, though, again, I hope will make this very different, is that the world will be changing, the world will be different, that we are the content creators, and so that in and of itself should hopefully be interesting enough to keep us coming back, and hopefully everything else will just be sort of cherry on top.
But that's why, again, when you're already doing that, when you have some kind of thing that says, hey, you didn't log in 2 days this month, you miss out, that still fucks you up, because it's like, well, I logged in
that
for 28 days.
disincentivizes, exactly. It's like if you miss any day, it's like, well, screw it, I'm just not going to log in at all this month. And I know that's not what they want either. There was one other thing I wanted to bring up real quick. If there was anything, unless there was anything else you wanted to say on that.
I will say one thing, just in terms of FOMO.
Yeah, go for it.
Because I am still a smidge peeved that Stufferton was released the month that my brother died, and I spent that month working on his memorial service. And when I came back, Stufferton, and I'm a Care Bear, so I need to be riding on a Stufferton. But it's not an option anymore. So that kind of stuff does. I hope they have a Stufferton-like thing somewhere in the game that I can get. But yeah, that fear of missing out is, just a problematic thing. It's not fun.
Yeah, it's punitive in itself, and I think it's something that I understand from a marketing perspective, business perspective, why you want to do it, but at the same time, from a player trying to enjoy the game and getting to it when you get to it, it really, really, really sucks.
Because life happens.
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to bring up just a couple other things real quick. They were talking about for the next community dev discussion, ideal classes. And I think that's going to be really weird because that's a really open subject. And then I think they said guild stuff is going to be coming up in the next few. So it'll be interesting to see what's going on with that. And then one other thing, they are still on the recruiting train. They have asked, please, if you are a skilled person that's interested in the game, apply. If you think you have friends that might be interested in working on the game, put the word out there. They're saying, word of mouth is one of the things that really helps them with recruiting, at least for all but apparently the senior positions, which they sound like they go with specific recruiters with. So yeah, put the word out there. Get your friends involved. When I saw that this round of applications came up, I was pretty much right on it lightning quick. It was the Sunday, I think it was a Friday, it was posted that Sunday. I had my application and I didn't get an automatic reply like the one from last year, but I just suspect that the inboxes may not have been set up yet because people were still coming back from vacation. And B, there might have just been a volume of emails where it's like, you know what, we're not actually going to have it send the auto replies. We'll just, let people know the status when we get to it. So they have let me know that, thanks for continued interest. And we've just got a lot of applications specifically I applied for the junior game design position. So we'll see how it goes with that. Sounds like there's multiple seats to fill. So good luck to everybody out there. They claim they want the very best from around the world. So whoever they do take in, both for interviews and to actually hire on, I'm sure are going to be some good folks with some proven experience. So it should be good to see. They hired, I think you said 27, 28 people last year in the past 6 months. They're looking to fill 60 seats now in this phase. So, definitely, if you got the skills, if this is your passion, get on it. This is the time. It sounds like Steven's pretty much like ready to go full speed ahead. He was a little worried about hiring during the pandemic. I think after the last 6 months and how well that's been going, he was pretty much ready to go forward. So good luck to everybody out there. And, we'll see how things go. Obviously, if I get hired, I'm not going to be on the show anymore, except as a special guest visitor sometimes and in the chat.
Well, more luck to you, though. So with that, we're at the end. So thank you, everyone that has shown up today. This has been actually really, we really appreciate it. I really appreciate it. So wasn't sure what to expect 2 months out of the blue. Well, 2 months later and out of the blue. I did not, my fault for not announcing anything. So we will be back to doing this regularly again. So I'm past the crucial, very busy part of my last 2 months. So this should be back to a regular occurrence. So that being said, everyone have a great week, and we will see you on Sunday.
Yeah. See you then, folks. Have a good one.
Okay.